Hello and welcome to Run Talk with Dom.
Hello.
And me, Ollie, co-founders of Run Riot. This podcast features conversations with runners talking about what Running is Released means for them.
Each episode contains frank discussions about personal endeavours, mental well-being, physical challenges. Basically, loads of good content related to running.
Okay, so for this episode of Run Talk, we're joined by Ben Gray from Run Talk Run. I want to talk to you, Ben, a little bit about the point of the club, how it's different to many other run clubs. But just as a preface, I wanted to say, I first came across you because our podcast is called Run Talk. And I thought, who are these guys that have basically ripped our name off? And was a little bit disappointed, if I'm completely honest, to see that you've been around a little bit longer than us, but was delighted in the same breath to say that you have very much the same sort of ambitions, the same sort of North Stars, which is to say that running is of great benefit to your mental health. So that's a relatively short prelude to getting to the point. So Run Talk Run, what is the point? Who's it for? And how is it different to a normal club? Ben?
Run Talk Run is for everyone. It's a community of small. We're there for people's mental health, right? We're there to create community, to improve mental health through community and through running. And that is done through a couple of structural things and some really key sort of elements to how we do each run, and also who we select and how we train our leaders as well. We spoke beforehand, and there's a couple of really, really key pieces to it. They're 5 kilometers. Every run is a 5 kilometer run. The routes are pretty consistent week to week. Some groups will have a winter and a summer, something like that, but it's a consistent route. And that's trying to remove barriers to entry for anyone who might be struggling with mental health. Consistency is really key there. We're going to start and finish at the same point every week. You're going to be welcomed by a trained run leader who will set the scene and create that special sauce, if you will, of what is a Run Talk Run. And that's to do with, hey, look, we all have mental health, right? You're coming with whatever you've got going on in your life right now. If what you need this week is to come along, run with some people who are going to look after you and just listen, that's fine. Bring that. If you've got something you need to get off your chest, that's fine. This is a safe place to do that, and we'll look after you. You could be an experienced runner, or you could be doing this for the first time. You might be returning after a really long time. So to manage that real variety in terms of speed and performance, I think this is a real unique aspect to us as well, is that we're going to go at the pace of the group. And essentially the person who perhaps is a much slower runner by definition, by experience or whatever else, or they need to have more walk breaks for whatever reason, they become almost the center of that, of a moving circle. So we use this concept of swanning, the swan at the front of a pack of swans, when it gets tired, moves to the back. So what we're saying is, hey, Dom, if you and I are running along, we're quite experienced runners, so we can have a chat and run at the same time, and it doesn't feel like we're dying. We might be pulling away a little bit from that group. So just be aware of people around you. And if you get couple of hundred meters ahead, let's loop back around and join the group. But where traditionally you might do that almost in an opposite way as an interval, what we're going to say is don't just join the back, like overshoot by a couple of 100 meters and then join in. And so what that means is whoever your slowest moving person is that week, they're going to be the center of this moving circle. And I think that's something that's quite unique. And it only works with a relatively small group. And we do try and keep our groups to 2 to 20 people. Once you get beyond that, it's a bit difficult to manage that level of movement whilst also managing risks around traffic and everything else.
I think that's a really important point. And that was the thing that struck me when we first spoke about this idea, this swanning idea, that there's no one's ever at the back. You're always in that constant flow and ebb of a run pack. It is fundamentally different to a normal run out. And I think that's a key point we have to emphasize. And that has obvious benefits to you as a group and to you as an individual as well. So I think that's a really nice segue actually into your personal journey. So Ben, how did you get involved? What led you to Run Talk Run? What's your personal story here?
I've been running and kind of, I guess, taking it somewhat seriously for maybe 5 or 6 years. And my entry point to running was a charity half marathon. We'd had a number of miscarriages between our two kids. And, that's a very difficult time to go through. And the Miscarriage Association were a big support, especially to my wife. So we wanted to kind of give back. And we did Royal Parks Half together. And I found out that my wife does not like running with me, and she does not like running events with me either. And she really doesn't actually like running that much. But we did it together. We finished together. We raised some money for a good cause, and I started to get the bug a little bit. And I think that was my entry point. I did a couple of half marathons. I am ADHD, sort of adult diagnosed ADHD in the last couple of years. I very much work better with a daily dose or even a couple of doses of exercise. Like, it helps me keep my brain working, functioning in the right way. It just helps me feel good, feel right. And it really helps me, keep my mental health in a good place. We call ourselves a neurospicy family, right? So there's a lot of chaos at home from time to time, and work and life stress, as everyone has. And for me, running and community is like a backbone of mental health. And I'd experienced that. Especially in the ultra space, there's a really kind of everyone turns up to a 100-mile start line, not knowing 100% what's going to happen, and can they finish, and what terrible things are they going to have to manage through that process, right, to get to the end? Because nobody from the front to the back has a clean run at 100 miles, right? And you can be running along, and the person next to you is a doctor, and the next person is unemployed, and the next person is a student, and you just don't know. Like, it's everybody. And what's interesting for me is that Run Talk Run's almost the version of that that's the entry point to running. So it's like everyone's welcome. You're going to have a 20-year-old female student who's struggling with anxiety, and you're going to have a retired couple, and you're going to have, anyone could be there. And some of those people might go to parkrun every week, and some of them might not even go to parkrun yet, because they're just, and it's that's what drew me to it. I was like, I'm finding that running is really massively beneficial for my mental health. I'd like to give back to the wider society, the running community, and also the non-running community who would really benefit from this. And I think like Run Talk Run's very much an access point for people who either ran at some point, and I'd argue everyone ran at some point. Just look at 2 and 3 year olds moving around. Like, almost everybody, they get excited. Kids get excited, they run towards something, right? So we used to have that in us. And as we get older and more boring, and life gets on top, we forget that actually there's a joy in just running to something that you want to get to. And we're there to kind of say, look, it doesn't matter if you don't have 280-pound carbon fiber shoes, and you don't understand the difference between easy, steady, long run, all of this different, cultural language that might seem alien. Easy paced running, which is one of the things that quite often comes up, because it's like, are you showing off that you can do an easy paced run, or, and all of the Strava stuff and all of that. And it's no, easy is just, it's part of the, it's part of the language. And what it means is an easier effort than some of your hard efforts, right? And so on. And so we're there to sometimes just educate our community on what some of that language might mean. But it's also to say, look, there's a joy in running with others. And actually, sometimes all of that other stuff gets in the way of that. Like, you forget that because as runners, we move the goalposts instantly, right? You do a 2-hour half marathon. I was talking to somebody this morning about his partner had just gone sub 2 hours at London Landmarks this weekend. And that's brilliant. And it won't be long before she's like, I want sub 155 or 150 or 140. We just move the boundary. And then at some point in life, we get old enough that now our fastest one's happened. So are we then going to just stop running or not enjoy it anymore? Or are there other things that running can offer? And I truly believe that you can have all of those things. As runners and as people, we need different things and different tools at different moments on different days, right? So I love my Monday night 5K, walk, run, talk with each other, supportive community where I've got that annoying email that's really winding me up, and I can rant and they'll listen and they say, Ben, stop being stupid. And by the end of the run, I feel a bit better. And I love going out and pushing at a park run, or going out to park run just to meet some people and going slower, but chatting. And, so all of these things have value. But I think with my journey into this, I could see something special about Run Talk Run. It is different. it does fill a niche that's kind of currently unserved. And I think moving people from not moving to moving, giving them that access point to understand what running and community can bring to you, and then helping, some people will go on from that and join Parkrun and do events and, get the bug, and some might not. And that's okay too. Like, we can all do, and it'll be up and down through life and all of that sort of thing. And I just really loved that. And so I joined Sport in Mind, which is the overarching charity that powers Run Talk. So we've got Run Talk Run powered by Sport in Mind. Sport in Mind have been doing this same thing, but across lots of different sports, for 15 years. They've worked with the NHS, they work with Sport England and lots of other, governing bodies. And they took on, the Run Talk Run community a few years back to help us, establish or kind of consolidate everything that we were at that point and get ready for the future. And so I was part of that organisation, and I think November I kind of moved full time onto sort of heading up Run Talk Run.
Yeah, no, it's an incredibly interesting story from a personal perspective, and I just want to pick up on a couple of things you've just said there. First and foremost, the inclusivity of Run Talk Run. I love the idea that, it's for many people a point of entry to the sport of running. For other people, almost the running secondary. It just happens to be that you're doing something that gives you, if you like, the therapy away from just standing. And you have different conversations when you're in movement than you do if you're sat across a table at a pub or in a cafe. The other point I absolutely love was you talked about you did the London Landmarks half. I believe that was your first half with your wife, and you'd gone through some mental anguish, grief of some form with miscarriage, and then that led you down a path of I'm quite into this, not quite sure why. And then discovering that actually the mental benefits were probably greater than, or at least on a par with, the physical benefits. This point about the importance of running for your mental health. Now, this is the one thing that we are both absolutely aligned on. And in all the work that you do and the brand, obviously, Run Right, that is our raison d'etre. Running is release. It's all about how you utilize running for your mental health or mental wellness. But I want to ask you, because you're at the coalface of this, what do you see? Where's the evidence from the groups that you've run, all the communities that you've been part of, which is, a fair few? Where have you seen evidence that exercise is medicine for the mind? What issues are some of the folk that you've been, leading out on these Run Talk Run sessions? What have they been living with, and how's this initiative helped unpack or manage those issues?
There's a master's student who did a whole project, whole paper on Run Talk Run and what it does and how it helps people. And fundamentally, there's a few things, right? There's community. If you're struggling with mental health, and that could be serious mental illness, that could be low mood, right? So it can be, I think the thing about Run Talk Run is we do work kind of across a whole spectrum of levels of mental health, from you're generally in good mental health, but sometimes you're having some down days or that sort of thing, which is very, very common, to really, really impactful anxiety, depression. It could be, bipolar disorder. It could be any of those sorts of things. It could be a combination of all of these things, right? It could be physical disability that also then often, finds mental health alongside that, or mental health challenges alongside that. So we do have at least one research paper that was specifically done on Run Talk Run. But really, it's the anecdotes and the stories are probably the biggest evidence base, if you will. And if you look over the last couple of years, we've had 3,000 plus people that have run or walked with us. And they're in very small groups, right? So that's a lot of groups where it's 2 to 12 to 15 to 20 people meeting every single week. And of course, some of those people are only going to get there once a month, once every 6 weeks. And that could be because their mental health is particularly bad. It could be just life pressure. Perhaps they're a carer. And if they're a carer and they're looking after someone else, they really struggle to get out. But when they do, it has a big impact for them. So personally, and I hear this a lot from all of the different leaders who come on board, generally people who come and become a volunteer leader for Run Talk Run have a personal experience of either themselves or somebody very close to them struggling with their mental health, and they've seen how exercise and community can have a really positive impact for those people. With mental illness and poor mental health, you do quite often find yourself isolating. Your thoughts spiral. You believe you're the only one feeling like that, and that makes everything feel worse. And there's this meta kind of acceleration of that negative feeling. And the being part of a community, feeling part of something, it doesn't have to be Run Talk Run. It could be Walk Talk Walk. It could be playing badminton at your local, badminton session. But you start to meet people who are doing it as well. And that's where Sport in Mind play. They do one specifically focused for mental health. But it's about community. It's about realizing you're not alone. It's about realizing that the human condition involves all of this stuff that you're going through, and that's okay. And it's also about realizing that moving your body, your physical and mental health are inextricably linked, right? It's only language that separates the two. And often, some of those mental health aspects will be living in your body, and it starts to feel better when you start moving. So, anecdotally, I mean, if I just think purely about my run in Oakley, which is just outside of Oxford, I've probably had 50 or 60, 70 different people who've attended over the last 5 years or so. We're usually, in the depths of winter, in a rainy Monday night, it might be 3 or 4 of us. In the summer on a beautiful day, if I've done a little bit more local marketing, maybe there's 15 or 20 of us, right? But we know each other quite well now. We do get some new people coming in and out. But in amongst all of those stories, there's everything from that sort of younger person who's maybe struggling with social anxiety, trying to decide whether or not to make certain life choices, starting out in that like adult pathway of life, if you will, to people who are going through a divorce and really struggling there, and have found running and community to be that anchor that they needed in a really turbulent time in life. People who've just had baby for the first time, career changes, it's all of the stuff that we all go through, right? And big changes in life, whether that's starting a family, that might be your kids moving away and starting to work out like what's life like now. It could be relationship wise, it could be money wise, work stress, you name it, right? There's all of these different things. And what's been really interesting is often you're out and you're just having a bit of banter, you're having some fun, you're running, you're talking, you're chatting about whatever was happening in somebody's week, and you don't necessarily realize how much of a positive impact that's having. And then recently I sort of went out to my group and we've been going 5 years. I don't do it very often. I just said, oh, look, absolutely no pressure, but I'd just love some feedback. Like, what does Run Talk Run mean to you? Like, let me know. And got these amazing WhatsApp messages. Like, this has become, my weekly mental health anchor. Like, even though I can't make it every week, I know it's there. And when I can, I do. And it just gives me somewhere safe to just process whatever's been going on and almost like release that, that shaking the fizzy drink and the top opens and just releases a little bit of pressure and makes that next week that little bit easier. And there's all of those things. And some of those people have gone on to do really mega, stuff. Like a couple of our group have done 100K, trail races now and ended up raising, a bunch of money for Sport in Mind and Run Talk Run, which was brilliant. A couple of people did London Landmarks half this weekend for us. To people who are actually, they're never that interested in getting involved in that wider culture. But for them, that 5K on a Monday, with safe people that they know they can talk about whatever is going on is really, really important. And I loved you called out earlier that, yes, we're there for people who are just accessing our sport and just learning about it or reconnecting if they haven't for a long time. But just because you're into your running and you're doing pretty well at parkrun and your grade adjusted age bracket or whatever's looking good, or I came first in my age bracket the other day. I thought, oh gosh, maybe I'm going to one that's too little, on the old one. But that sort of thing, like, it doesn't matter whether you're trying to run 100 miles, trying to run a sub 25K, or 5K takes you over an hour. We can all get together and get some benefit from that. And just because you're physiologically in a good place from running doesn't mean you don't have all of those other stresses and you don't have to try and manage your mental health as well. So,
and I think as well, the idea that the two are not in opposition. I think this is a theme that's come out through a lot of these, chats we've had on the podcast, that you can still be trying to, as you've obviously clearly achieved, be the first in your age group or win that local 10K, whatever it is, that doesn't mean that you can't still go out and enjoy a slow-paced run in a community or even on your own to benefit the mental health. And I think that's the big learn for me personally out of all of these conversations, and also in my own personal relationship with running. And let's be honest, we all have a relationship with running, don't we? And it can fluctuate from I hate it to I really like it at the moment. But the idea that you can change that relationship as well. I used to constantly want to go out and do the lung busters, the 5Ks, just as quick as you can.
Yeah.
And you squeeze it in the day as well. And I actually think, just on that point, that's actually almost worse for your mental health when you're trying to squeeze it in and you're trying to go, because then you feel utterly disappointed if you don't hit the pace you were going for. You're sweaty and horrible, and then you're going back to work or whatever it is you're doing. Whereas the most enjoyable run I have in the week these days is going out with a couple of mates who are a bit slower, and everybody drops the pace so we can have a conversation. And you just come at the end of it, you go, well, I've done 10K. I didn't feel like I hurt myself too much, but the benefits of it are far greater than the benefits in terms of reward for smashing your PB at Park Run. I think, again, I'm finding segues almost naturally, but they're contrived horribly. The idea about doing something, having a relationship, it evolves, leads me to the question of, well, where is the future for Run Talk Run? What do you see as the man in charge, the guy who's governing the pathway for Run Talk Run? What is the future?
I think we can have a Run Talk Run or a Walk Talk Walk or both every day or every other day of the week. Anywhere that there's currently a park run, you could probably have 2 or 3. So that's a pretty big global challenge. I think in the next year, we can be 2 or 3x the size we are now. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we can be 10x plus. And I don't see any reason why by location, I believe we should probably be bigger than park run. Wouldn't be the same numbers.
There's a resource issue there as well, because, we mentioned at the offset, this isn't just a standard run. So presumably you need to bring people in to lead out those runs and train them up, I would have thought as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's we are in that space a little bit, right? Where we want to minimize barriers to entry, because we want anyone who's could benefit from this, which I would argue is almost everyone, to be able to have that opportunity. So we want to keep it free to attend. It's not free to deliver. Right. And at the moment, the way we're able to do that is because we're supported and powered by Sport in Mind. As we grow, yes, there are more overheads. Right. I've just put together an online training program for our leaders, because what we've done historically is a volunteer regional leader has one-on-one trained the individual leader. When you start talking about the numbers I was talking about in terms of how to deliver a global solution to mental health through running, it has to be more automated than that, right? We have to have ways to be able to scale. And Parkrun are great at this, right? They have their standardized kit. They have their standardized, this is how many run directors you need. This is how many volunteers you need to put on a park run, etc. Right? This is how you raise the money locally to be able to do it. And they've systemized it, right? They've done a really good way to systemize. And if you want to put your bid in, you can set one up. We're not quite there, but we're close. So what we're trying to do is get to a point where, Dom, you look in your local area, you go, there actually isn't one. And I talking to Ben, I've just had this epiphany. I realised that I need to be the leader for Run Talk Run in my local area. How do I go about that? Well, there's an online form on the website. You could click in there to find out more. Then we're going to send you a little bit more information and say, look, this is what it's all about. This is what we're going to ask of you. If you're still interested, click here, sort of thing. Then you're going to have an interview with me or with one of our regional leaders. Again, you'll find out more, but we're finding out, are you the right sort of person here and are you the right person? Do you care about improving mental health for yourself and for people in your community? Do you have a personal experience with your mental health being improved through running or walking or being outside and being in community? If you answer yes to those 2 things, you're probably the right type of person. We can then help put the structure, the training, and everything else around that to help you be successful. Because it's, yes, we need to teach you, okay, if somebody comes along and they're really struggling with their mental health, you're going to help them, but perhaps they need some other services. So do you know how to signpost them to that? How can we make that easy for you? So we've got, a web page, we can give you the link, but make sure you've got that link on your phone so you can easily send it to someone if they need to get more services, or what should they say to their GP if they're looking for extra support? And we can give you that sort of, guidance as well. How do you structure that welcome at that run? Because, you might be used to doing a run where you turn up and you go, hey, this is the route, watch out for cars, and we're going to go at roughly this pace. We'll see you at the end, right? That's not this. So you need to be able to structure that conversation at the start so everyone does feel welcome, so everyone understands, oh, this is different and this is how it's different, right? Like, I've been talking to some various different people about where we could roll this out. And I don't want, for example, in the military, I wouldn't want PT type trainers being the people who lead this, right? It's not the right type of thing. And I think that's why it quite often is difficult to do this if you come from a traditional running or athletics performance background, because you have to forget a lot of the stuff that you would do for almost everything else. Because the warm up here is how you do your welcome, and probably walking out the gate and chatting and showing people this is different. That's the warm up. It's not your A skip, B skip, right? Because you're not getting ready for a track session. It's different. And so, yes, there is, what we're trying to do is systemize that as much as possible. And then obviously, the support of brands, bigger awareness. There are enough runners out there who have this experience who would be fantastic leaders. Getting 2 or 3 people together to be co-leaders in an area so that it's feasible to be there every single week. The training, the support, we DBS check everyone. There's a cost associated to DBS checking everybody, and you need to renew that every 3 years. That's part of our safeguarding. We have to have a safeguarding framework and a safeguarding lead, and we have to investigate anything that could be a safeguarding incident. We investigate fully straight away, right? There's a resource associated to that. So those are the things. But I think really the biggest barrier to us getting to where we want to go is awareness and its finances, right? Because we know how to do this. The system is pretty much there. You can always improve a process in the system, right? You get a better business process person and they'll streamline stuff and make it all work really, really well. But ultimately, we have the stories, right? You asked what's the evidence. Those 3,000 people who've come along, almost everyone has a moving story. They're not all ready to tell it yet, and that's absolutely fine. We would never pressure somebody to share their story. I love beforehand, when we had a little chat beforehand, right? You said, do you want to talk about ADHD? Like, it's entirely up to you. I'm an open book. A lot of ADHDers are, right? And I like to share it because I think it's important that people understand. But not everyone wants to, needs to, is willing to share their story. But there are people who are. And so, our job is to try and get better at telling those stories through podcasts, through video, through short documentaries, through, all sorts of different things. And I'm working with different media people to put things together. Because really, like, I think once you understand what we do, and it is so different, no one else is doing this. We are the leader in this space. We're an obvious choice for a brand to get on board with, right? And then that's where some finances can come on board to just make sure that we do that right. And it's just amplifying the number of people who know about us, hear about us, and maybe go, I get that. Like, that's what I get from running, and I'd love to bring that into my week, right? Like you said, I by myself, I'm not going to let go of that. I want to run fast, or run a one hard, or, that's what makes me feel alive. But if I'm doing it for someone else, maybe I will just relax. And that one session a week, I mean, I did mine yesterday. I went for a run with my co-leader. We did a 10K before the 5K, right? So it's now sort of a slightly longer run. But we had a catch up. We had a great chat. Then we turned up and we did our Run Talk Run. And it's like, it's just a different thing. And I believe that almost everyone, especially the runners who put so much performance pressure on themselves, would benefit from this is just one run a week. Like, you can add it into any training plan. It's not going to exhaust you, but mental health wise, it's going to change your life.
I think on that point as well, we've talked about the resource, we've talked about the infrastructure that you've obviously built, and you would need to continue to build to obviously get the expansion that you're looking for. I just want to get to the core advert, if you like, is, if people want to get involved in Run Talk Run, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this podcast will go, oh, actually, this is for me. What should they do? Where's their first port of call to get involved?
Best thing's probably Run Talk Run website. So it's runtalkrun.com. There's a find out more, contact us page like there is on everyone. That comes through straight to us. It'll make its way through to me most likely. You can say on there if you want to find out more about becoming a leader, and you get on that pathway. There's a link in there as well to find there's a map, so you can, location wise, you can see where all of them are right now. We use an app called Halo, which is our community management app. So you can go on Halo if you happen to have it already. Just search up Run Talk Run, and it's regionalised. So there's Run Talk Run London, Run Talk Run Southwest, Southeast, etc. If you're not sure what region you need, get in touch through that website, and or Instagram is the other place. So Run Talk Run again on Instagram. There's an official one and lots of local ones. But if you look at Run Talk Run Central, you can always DM, and that will find its way to me as well.
I've got to ask this question because I get asked this quite a lot myself. Is I want to get into running. What do I need? So anybody that went to one of these meetups, there's often a bit of anxiety about you. I mean, you talked about carbon plated shoes. Let's not go to that extreme, but like, what kind of shoes do I need? What kind of clobber do I need to turn up with? So maybe if you just give a little bit more detail on that.
That's right. Yeah. So you need a full SOAR running kit with carbon fiber shoes. So you can do that, right? And again, the whole point with Run Talk Run is it's inclusive. If you've got all the kit and you want to wear it, absolutely welcome. I love running trainers. I've got loads of them. You know, you're going to need some trainers to run in, right? I know there'll be a little subset of the running community who are like, we run barefoot and okay. But generally speaking, right, the vast majority of people, you're going to want some comfy trainers. I would say that's still pretty accessible. Vinted is brilliant for that. So many people who really get into running buy loads of trainers, try it. They've done 1 5K in them, didn't really like them, don't get round to returning them and sell them for like 30 quid. And they're brand spanking new, comfortable trainers, right? I always say to people, if you can get to a local run store and get on a treadmill to try some trainers, do that. Don't get hoodwinked, mesmerized by the selling pitch around, you need this one, this is your gait. Because they cannot do a proper gait analysis in 3 minutes when you've just walked in off the street, right? It's rubbish from a science perspective. What's brilliant, though, is trying on different makes of trainers, different models, and going, these feel comfy, right? And if you can, go in some run kits, you could actually have a go at different paces rather than in your jeans, you know, on the way to do the rest of your shopping. But so some comfortable run trainers. But if economics, if finances are a problem, get in, try some on, go, I feel really comfy in Saucony or Nike or whatever. Try and make and model if you can. And then get on Vinted, get on the sales. You'll find somewhere that's cheaper. Now, that sounds like I'm anti-local shops. I'm not. I quite like supporting local shops. If you can afford it, you know, they're giving a great service. They serve the community. Please do go and buy a pair from them. Mention that you're part of Run Talk Run. A lot of, especially independent shops, will give you a 10, 15% discount because you're part of a run club. I think that's always worth asking because they like to support the running community in their local area, right? And that's important too. But you need a comfy pair of shoes. You need a good pair of socks, right? Shorts and a t-shirt, right? Or tracksuit and a top. If you're wearing stuff that's a little bit more like thicker and longer and you're in the summer, you're going to probably get a bit uncomfortable. So think about that. But everyone runs different. Some people are going to run particularly hot or particularly cold. But almost anything's going to be all right. Now, we're talking about turning up to a Run Talk Run where you're going to actually walk a lot more than you probably expected to. That's going to help your heart rate come down. That's going to help you get warm or cold if you need to. I would recommend, if you've not run before at all, take some layers, because then you can, especially a thinner layer, so you could take something on and off if you're getting hot or cold, especially with run walking as well. Like, you might get quite hot initially. You want to take your long sleeve off and you tie it around your waist, and then, you start walking for a bit and it's windy and you need to put that back on again so you don't get too cold. So having some layering system or something, you can get into the weeds. But really, that layering system could be a long sleeve t-shirt, a pair of shorts, and some trainers, right? And you can come along. We do, especially people who are new to this, like, almost anything will work. I wouldn't recommend coming in some loafers. They're probably not going to be that comfortable to run in. Don't come in Crocs. Okay, that doesn't meet our criteria for health and safety. Because, there's broken stuff on the floor, there's curbs, there's things that's going to hurt your feet. So a comfortable pair of shoes, trainers that fit, but it doesn't have to be, all singing, all dancing. It's down to your own personal budget, your own personal preference. Some people love really bright stuff. Some people love really, dull, kind of boring colors. Yeah. You do you. That's part of what Run Talk Run's all about, is bring you as you. I've turned up to some of these ultra races and some of the most elite people turn up with like a plastic bag, right? That I bet most new runners would be ashamed of or scared to turn up with. And they're absolute, like, decimate the field. They're the best runners. And it's not about doing that or not doing that. It's just anything goes, really. Like, running is a movement that's doing walking, but a bit faster. We can all do it, right? Like, you can theoretically do it in everything. You'll be a bit more comfy in a comfy pair of trainers. And I think the more comfy you can make it when you're starting, because when you first start running, what your body does is a little bit like a heart attack, right? Your heart rate goes up like this. Your face gets red. Your temperature goes up. You start sweating. It can feel a bit overwhelming. And especially if you have some sensory issues as well, like that can feel quite an attack on your central nervous system. And it's only after, we know once you've been doing it consistently once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, several weeks go by, suddenly you start to realize, oh my goodness, like I can actually run now and it doesn't feel like I'm dying. Like it's still hard, and running will always have a hard aspect to it, I think, for people. But at the very beginning, it can be a bit overwhelming. So I think anything you can do to make that a little bit easier. So as you start running, you run 30 or 40 meters. If you then go back to walking and you go, oh, I didn't die. Like I'm doing this. Like, you're casting a vote for the person you're becoming, not the person you thought you were. And I think that builds over and over and over time.
I think that's a really lovely sentiment there. You're casting a vote for who you want to be. And it's quite interesting when you speak to people who suddenly go, no, I'm actually a runner. Whereas, a year ago or maybe 6 months ago, they would have definitely said they weren't. And there's something that just kind of flicks and goes, yeah, no, I can call myself a runner now, whatever that looks like. And that is do you, basically, isn't it? Anyway, so from the onboarding, shall we call it, through to the extremes, you mentioned ultras. Let's stick with something more mortal, like a marathon. And of course, we've got the London Marathon coming up. We at Runright are very much gearing up for the expo that happens in the 4 days that run up to the Sunday of the London Marathon. So we're very excited. We're very busy at the moment. There's a lot of preparation on our part to get ready with our stall and all of the interviews and the content that we're going to create. Nothing that compares, though, to the preparation you do for actually training for a London Marathon. And when you and I were talking, you made a really interesting point that stuck with me. I want you to give a bit more detail on this now. This idea of building up to an event. I mean, it's a big event in one's personal life to do a marathon, whether it's your first, your 50th, it's still a big deal. And it requires a huge amount of training, both physically and mentally and emotionally to get ready. And then you do the event and there's this kind of, I think you referred to it as a sort of cliff drop. It's like you've done the event, there's the euphoria immediately afterwards. And then what? Then you have an emotional drop. Well, I've done that. There's a physical drop. Often you can't run the next day. You can't do much the next day or the next week. And your body has to recover as well. So there is a good break quite often, unless you're out to do a recovery run. All of which, though, and this is the interesting point I'd not even considered, you mentioned that all of this affects your mental health. And therefore, we need to think about the event after the event. So maybe with London Marathon coming up Sunday week from now, maybe you could just talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like, good luck to everybody who's kind of, in their final preparation for that. You've done it or you haven't, but don't overdo it now, please. Like, it's only going to make it worse when you get to the day. Whether you're training for your first ever 5K or the London Marathon, like, it's an event. I think when you're talking about the London Marathon, it's such a spectacle. It's a global spectacle. And for many, many people, it'll be a once in a lifetime. I think I've been in the public ballot 12 years now, still not got a place, right? Like, it's incredibly hard to get into. And it is a spectacle the whole day. So you're going to put in, to get fit for a marathon. Yes, some people will do a 12-week or a 16-week plan or something, but the vast majority of people will put years in before they're kind of taking that on. They're going to put a really dedicated training block. They might have given up alcohol. They might have been getting to bed early. They might have been getting out in the horrible weather all through the winter to try and make sure that they're ready for this big thing. And then you show up and the TV's there and the celebrities are there, and like London goes mad for running on marathon week, right? It is big. I'm up on Thursday night doing a pop-up run. They're starting even earlier this year. Do you know what I mean? There's activations and stuff happening all over the place. this huge spectacle. You put all of your physical, mental, emotional effort into getting there. Then you have the day and it's incredible, right? And, everybody's there, this whole support network, and then it's not. And what you've learned across all of that time is that running, that community, that feeling part of something, that goal, all of those things have created some purpose and some value for you. And now not only is that gone, so you're a little bit, where am I going next? But you're physically, emotionally, psychologically drained. Your usual coping strategy that you've been using for the last however long, running, is kind of taken away from you for a bit. Like you said, for most people, they're going to have a period of 2 or 3 weeks of very reduced running or no running at all. So one of your main coping strategies is gone. Your mental health and physical health is going to be in the lowest place it's been for a while, potentially. And so how do you deal with that? And I think it's really important. And we see this a lot with Olympians. They spend 4, 8, 12 years of cycles to get to their premium result at the Olympics. It goes the way it does or it doesn't. But then afterwards, it's like, well, what now? Like, this is all I've ever known. And marathon training does become consuming. If you work, if you've got a family, your life getting ready for a marathon is work, family, running. That's it, right? You haven't got much else. So when the running disappears, all you've got is the life stress is still there. The work stress is still there. All the other things that you've been somewhat managing with your running and your community, they're still going to be there. Just because you've done your London Marathon doesn't mean that you don't have to pay bills or get to work or do all of those other things, deal with your teenage kids or whatever it might be. But your resolve, your will to support yourself is on empty. And so I think it's really, really important to think about that and just think like, you don't want to spend 100% of your focus on that when you're building up to something like a London Marathon. But it's not a bad thing to spend 5-10%. Just think about, like, what can I do to be kind to myself in that week or two afterwards? What can I do to put some scaffolding around me to help support me after that run? And especially if you're somebody who lives by yourself, the chance of starting to feel really isolated and down after this is higher. So who can you book it? Like, phone your mum, phone your best friend, whoever. Like, what plans can you make for the week or two after the marathon where you can just go, no matter what, I will go and have that brunch or go for a walk or meet them in the park or go to the cinema. It doesn't have to be physically active, but fill some slots. Don't just leave it empty, because I think then that person, talk to people who are in your network and say, look, can you just check in on me? Like, just come, just see how I am. Like, I'd really appreciate it. And you ask somebody, everybody's got somebody that they can talk to. And if you haven't, we've got all of those signposting things as well. We can definitely share them, but there's lots of different places online to be able to find, Samaritans or text support, or, there's different things. Calm have a helpline. There's lots of different helplines and opportunities out there to go and get that support. But do something, have a little bit of a plan for that, because it's well known, it's likely to happen. Lots of marketing will be coming your way to try and get you to sign up to the next thing, right? Because all of the event companies know full well that this is how you're going to feel, and some people's solution is just going to be to dive straight into the next one and pick something else. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if you like having a goal, but I do think there's value for everybody, especially from a mental health perspective, of just saying, look, I know this is coming. It could be difficult. And what can I do? Book in a massage. Go and get a massage, or whatever it is that you like, that you value. Book in some time to actually have a lunch break one of your days that you're working, and just sit outside in the sunshine, read a book. Whatever it is for you to fill your cup a little bit, because your normal running strategy is going to be sort of, you talked about that relationship with running. Maybe you're on a break for a little while and you need to try and find something else to do in that week or two.
I think that's really, really brilliant advice, because I think everybody that's run, as you say, whether it be your first 5K through to an ultra or whatever, has had that experience of the post-euphoria slump, where it's kind of like, I've done that, and physically you're just not capable of doing what you did before, not without pain or risk of injury. And that's something we really want to avoid as well, because of all the benefits. I do know someone who runs marathons regularly, and they had a piece of advice which I think echoes what you said, and I just wanted to share it with you, which was they did the same short run that they normally do, not one of the longer ones, but the shorter runs that they do, but they walked it. And it was kind of like tricking their brain that they were doing the same route, but because they were walking it, they still got all the benefits of being outside, fresh air, etc., and a familiarity of a route that they felt good doing because it was a shorter one as well. But because they were walking it, obviously it didn't have the burden of say, slaughtering it on a run. So I thought that was quite interesting, and obviously echoes what you've said. Okay, I think that's been absolutely brilliant. We've deliberately ended on talking about London Marathon, not just because it's topical, and as you say, it is a global event, and I'm fairly confident a world record is going to get broken this year. However, the reason why we wanted to end on that is also because we'd love to follow up with you, Ben, and talk after the marathon and reflect maybe on some of the things that we've seen over the course of probably about 7-8 weeks since we spoke then, which is now, if that made sense. It's been brilliant to have you on, Ben, and I'm really delighted that we did get to meet and talk after having sort of looked at each other. Well, I definitely looked at you. I don't know if you ever looked at us, but looked at you and gone, what are they all about? And it's just brilliant to hear that you're doing such terrific work with some really good evidence. One thing I would ask, just to finish on, you mentioned I think it was a PhD student who'd written a paper. Has that been published yet? It has. Brilliant. Well, we will put a link to that then now so that people can click on that, because I think that's a great evidence point.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks very much.
Ben. Let's talk again soon.
Look forward to it.
Brilliant. See you later.